old school bodybuilding clothing company. If it's been 3.5 hours since you last ate protein and now you're starting to freak out, you are old school. If watching someone sit on a hammer machine for 5 minutes between sets playing with their phone pisses you off, you are definitely old school. OSBBC.com for the hardest training athletes.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body, and that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions, as always, on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB news, pros, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. We now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, right now on the channel, a tribute video that you and John Romano did on Billy Smith, a.k.a. Thunder from back in the day, American Gladiators, also an NPC level bodybuilder. I didn't know, but John apparently was very good friends with him. So he has a very inside perspective. And then yesterday, an episode of Iron Debate that we've been waiting to have for quite some time. We had Akim Williams, Hunter Labrada, Iain Valliere. So, we talked about the changing of the guard in bodybuilding. 3 of the brightest young stars made for a great roundtable discussion.
Yeah, some more sad news, obviously, in the bodybuilding world. It seems like it never stops. Billy Smith and John were really close. They used to go out, when Billy was married to his ex-wife, Kathy, well, him and John, and John was married to Shelley Beatty, they would all hang out together. So John knew him really, really well. I only competed against him. I didn't really know him that well. I know Chris Cicito worked with him at Gold's Gym Venice as well, because he used to run the nutrition analysis there, and Chris had an office in Gold's for many years. So there was obviously some crossover. We all kind of knew Billy, and from what I understand, Billy had got a double knee replacement. This is according to Jimmy Quinn, who told me this. Double knee replacement about a year ago, but it got infected. And if you know anything about joints, when they get joint replacements, they get infected, they actually have to remove them. They have to clean out. It's a nightmare. And Billy was in the hospital for a long time. And he was being discharged. Supposedly he was feeling better and everything like that. He had been in for a month. And they don't know if he had a stroke or if he had an aneurysm or something happened. And it was a sudden death no one really expected at this point, although he had been suffering for about a year since those knee replacements. And, when it's your time, man, it is your time. And, I really send my prayers and condolences out to his family, because that's a tough one. I mean, he was a good guy, very smart, intelligent guy. He knew his bodybuilding. He lived the lifestyle every single day. He was still trained. I heard he was still big. I heard he was still over 280 or something like that. Now Billy was also 6'4", so you got to remember he was a big guy. But he was definitely, I think his most notorious role would be the American Gladiators role he had on TV for many years. And he was a good gladiator too. I don't even know how he moved like he did at that body weight, but man, he was very athletic. So he'll be missed for sure. And then, of course, on a lighter note, yesterday we had that great Iron Debate episode. I love Ian, Hunter, and Akim, and Nick Walker. Are my 4 favorite new guys, because they love to they got a very strong opinions on things. People think Akim doesn't, but Akim is very quiet. But if you listen to the episode, Akim had some very strong opinions. And even one of the anecdotes he brought up, which was pretty interesting, was that everyone always talks about Ronnie Coleman being the strongest bodybuilder of all time, but Akim legitimately on video, they documented it when he was with Blackstone Labs, squatted at over like 825, some crazy amount of weight he squatted, well over 800 pounds, where he walked it out himself. He sunk it down, no knee wraps, no belt, nothing, no equipment. And he did it like it was like 135 pounds. And I've seen Akim do stuff like that. He's crazy strong. He's definitely the strongest bodybuilder probably of all time. Him and Dallas McCarver and, of course, Stan Efferding. But I think Akim, no one can make this weight look easier than Akim. He does it effortlessly. He probably can squat 1,000 pounds, the guy. With no problem if you really wanted to. Obviously, there's no reason for him to do that because he doesn't need to get hurt, but he is outrageously strong, and I'm glad he brought that up because a lot of people forget that. So it's a great episode. If you want to watch it, it's on the YouTube channel now.
So check that out, and of course, all new episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. After Hours was going to go up yesterday, but we did Iron Debate live, so we wanted to make sure that the After Hours
By the way, the After Hours episode was excellent, too. My client, good friend, Giovanni Del Biondo was on there. He's our former teen national champion. John Effer, yeah. And we found out why where the John Effer comes from. And so you got to watch that episode to find out. He was really good on the episode. We had a fun time. It was Valentino, myself, and what's his name? And John. So it was really good. I think a lot of people are going to like that episode.
Nah, he's a good friend of the show and former teen national champion. So it's good to have him on, get a sense of his personality as well. Another young and up-and-coming star in the bodybuilding world. Let's go to the questions. The first two questions, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question, Dave, when you deplete before carb up for a Saturday competition, you deplete to zero carbs to empty the glycogen deposit and then replenish?
Everyone's different. Like if I have a guy on a very low or girl on a very low carb diet already, like a ketogenic type diet, there's no reason don't have to deplete any more than that. You just fill them up. If I have someone eating a lot of carbs because they happen to, have a very fast metabolism and be very lean already, sometimes I'll deplete them and I don't have to go completely zero carb with them because if I do, it's too much. And it's funny, we were talking about this with Ian on the Iron Debate show. If you're 270 pounds in contest shape, your caloric requirements are a lot greater than the person who's, 200 pounds, who's just barely getting in shape. So you kind of have to gear the carb up according to who the person is. I have people that their metabolisms are so fast, I have to feed them carbs the whole week before a show. So I'm virtually carbing them up for 7 days. And this is a trial and error type thing. So in other words, every client is a little different. And that's what makes a good coach. And I know I sound like a broken record. I say this all the time. I tell everyone, look, I have a way of doing things, okay? And every coach has their way of doing things. And just because I start you with this program, okay, that is a program that I use a lot because I believe in it, nutritionally speaking, supplement-wise, PED-wise, it doesn't mean it's going to stay like that. If it stays like that the whole time, that means your body responded perfectly to it. Very few people have that happen to them. Most people, I'm changing stuff constantly. And that's what coaching does. The starting point is not that important. It's where you go with the start after the program continues. That's what makes a good coach, knowing how to change the variables around on the chessboard so that things, get better, okay? If things are getting better on their own and you don't need to change the variables, then don't change them. So how hard you carb someone up or how low you go on carbs prior to carbing them up is really very dependent on how they looked that last week.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, what's the difference between cluster dextrin and a waxy maize?
There's a very fine line between these two products. And personally, what I've seen and the research that I've done, the cluster dextrins work really good when doing endurance events. They're basically glucose polymers. They're glucose molecules linked together. They're chain, okay? And thus the term cluster. So if you're like riding a bike, okay, 50 miles, okay, like our friend Ricky does, okay, and you're sipping cluster dextrins the whole time, it's going to give your body a very sustained fuel source to use on a constant basis as your body starts running down. Likewise, if you do a long leg workout, some guys work out for 2.5 hours in the gym. I think that's a little crazy, but if you're doing a long workout and you're going to deplete glycogen down to almost nothing because you're, then that's a good drink to drink. Sip it, during your training. You could theoretically use it post-workout too if you really want to. A lot of people like it. I happen to like post-workout. I like to use high molecular weight carbohydrates like waxy maize or Vitargo and those things. I find that they're very large in size, the molecules, but they leave the stomach and empty from the stomach and assimilate very quickly into the bloodstream. And that's why they have such a high glycemic index like clustered dextrins do. So intra-workout type, nutrition, I like the clustered dextrins. Post-workout, I really like the waxy maize and high molecular weight amylopectins. Even pre-workout, I used to do pre-workout. I would do like a Vitargo, because my product wasn't around then, and I liked that because I felt like it gave me sustained fuel source without dropping my blood sugar too low because it was spiking insulin too fast. A lot of times I mixed it with like a whey isolate with maybe even a little bit of macadamia nut oil just to kind of slow it down a little bit. But intra-workout, I like the clustered dextrins. Post-workout, I like the waxy maize, like Vitargo products.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us on Instagram, the handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time on YouTube, as we mentioned, all new episode of Iron Debate with Hunter Labrada, Akim Williams, and Iain Valliere. All new episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. And then, of course, all new episode of the After Hours podcast tomorrow. Hit the subscribe button below. Hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss anything. Of course, now we're entering into the midst of the pre-Arnold Classic / Olympia season. So a lot of preview segments, a lot more episodes of Iron Debate, a lot of athlete interviews, so much over the course of the next, 4 to 6 weeks. I know the two shows are 2 weeks apart, leading into both shows. And then, of course, on-site coverage of both the Arnold Classic and the Olympia. So if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below, and we appreciate all of your support all season long. Let's go to Tim STBT. Is it a good idea? I know that we've had this discussion before, but I'll give you some perspective maybe if that's where he's coming from on this. Dave, I don't know if you've heard, but the Alicante show, the NPC Europa, there were a lot of comments about the stage lighting and then how that affected the web stream. Right. So, but they came out and made a public statement that they are going to be working on it, and that's going to be a point of emphasis for them. So he goes on to say lots of bad lighting at shows recently. So again, in your opinion, is it a good idea to standardize lighting? Is that even possible?
If you looked at the Alicante stage, it was absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful. If you're in the auditorium and you look at this thing, they probably spent a fortune on this thing. The problem is that it ruins the pictures and video a lot of time because the camera, if anyone knows ever worked a video camera, the camera picks up light. If you have something in the background throwing off crazy amounts of light and sparkling and doing this and that, the camera doesn't know where to focus and it messes up the lighting. Okay, so it sounds boring, but the Ironman Pro that used to take place years ago, for prejudging, they had a black curtain behind everyone with amazing lighting on everyone. And those are the best pictures people ever had of themselves on stage because it was perfect lighting. I think all prejudging should be standardized for that. The night show, however, should have a set. I like the set. I've seen the Olympia sets. I've seen Ed and Betty Pariso's had always great sets on their shows. I've seen great sets at the Arnold Classic. But you can't have anything with lights flickering in the back because it does screw up the cameras. And for TV and for the photographers sitting there, and it's very frustrating for those photographers because they can't pick the right apertures on their camera and it messes up things. So I think that there should be a standardization for the idea that we are watching, most people are watching it at home, not from the front row of the auditorium, and most people want to see pictures after and evaluate the pictures. So that's something that needs to be addressed. But I think there's no reason why you can't put a black curtain behind everyone for prejudging to make sure that we see the physiques at their greatest, at least for the prejudging. And then, have your fanfare for the night show. I think that would be a smart move on their part.
Let's go to WorldFit Coach. Is finasteride going to affect my cut for a competition?
No, finasteride shouldn't affect anything. Some people notice that they have a drop in sex drive if they lower their DHT levels too much with finasteride. That's why a lot of times I tell people, if you're taking it for hair loss or prostate issues, try my Testalize product first. It has a very high potency salt palmetto extract, and that does lower DHT, but it doesn't rock bottom, knock it to the basement. It doesn't annihilate it, and I think that's the problem. Some people, you want to lower your DHT, but you don't want to get it too low, because then you have side effects from it, in a sense. Now, I don't know if it's not gonna prevent you from getting in shape or getting lean, because I took finasteride for the second half of my career. I didn't have any problems with that at all. But some guys do complain of sex drive issues because their DHT levels are getting too low. So try Testalize, 3 pills twice a day. If that solves the problem in terms of it stops your hair loss or alleviates some of the pressure on your prostate, or even a lot of guys use it. I have teens using it for acne. If you have bad acne, that's usually irritated by high DHT levels. If you blunt your DHT a little bit, you'll see that improve quite a bit. So that's my suggestion. Try that first. Make finasteride your last result.
Let's go to Neil Zalewski. Best glucose disposal agent that isn't just form insulin or metformin.
Vanadyl sulfate, believe it or not, is probably the closest natural supplement to insulin. I mean, if you've ever taken it, it really drops your blood sugar a lot. Now, I don't know if it's doing it. I think it's almost having an insulin-like action rather than a insulin sensitizing action, because I remember taking it once before I went to the gym, and I got to the gym and my blood sugar was so low, I had the cold sweat going on and everything like that. Obviously, you got berberine and you have, chromium. If you're chromium deficient, taking chromium can help with insulin sensitivity. Be honest with you, the best insulin sensitizer is fish oil, okay, and omega-7 palmitoleic acid. Tremendous insulin sensitizers. That's why a lot of people, if they noticed when they eat fish, okay, a lot of people will switch to all fish diet, like if they need to lose a lot of weight the last kind of 4 to 6 weeks before a show, and all of a sudden the fat starts coming off because it really makes them super insulin sensitive. So their body doesn't over-release insulin, which means they're going to lose weight faster. So fish oil supplements, my Omega-Lyze formula has the fish oil, 3,000 milligrams in there per serving, and it also has the palmitoleic acid in there, which is not only a good insulin sensitizer, but it actually reduces total body inflammation, so your C-reactive protein levels will go down, which is something good, especially given that, COVID times, high inflammation in the body can make you, have a much greater poor response if you do get the virus. So you want to keep your C-reactive levels lower in your body. So that's something that I would try a good essential fatty acid supplement that has the thyme fish oil and palmitoleic acid, and then see how your insulin sensitivity is. I think you'll notice that your blood sugars will run lower and you're going to have less problems.
Let's go to AJ49. Thoughts on chromium picolinate for insulin sensitivity?
It's a good point you brought up. And, back when people were chromium deficient, which it seemed like there was a big chromium deficiency back in the 80s, they were finding that, when they restored chromium, to the people, that they were having less insulin output and they were having lower blood sugars. What chromium is necessary for, they call it a glucose tolerance factor. Really what it is it's a cofactor. In order for your insulin to absorb or push glucose into the cells, you need chromium present as a cofactor. So if you have insulin, that's not enough. So if you're missing chromium, okay, what happens a lot of times is your body thinks, oh, I'm not absorbing the glucose, my blood sugars are running high, I must not have enough insulin. So the body starts over-releasing insulin, and what happens when you over-release insulin, you store more body fat. So having too much insulin around is not good, especially while dieting or trying to get lean. So by putting chromium in a situation where you're deficient, you're going to see better, glucose tolerance, and you're going to see better weight loss. The problem is that if you're not, chromium deficient and you just add chromium into the equation, it's not going to do anything. But it's a good idea to take chromium on a daily basis. And, if you have a multivitamin you're taking that has a good source of chelated chromium, chromium picolinate, chromium polynicotinate, then you're good. And you only need about 200 micrograms per day. Ironically, the highest naturally occurring source of chromium, okay, in the food supply is beer, believe it or not. Not that I'm telling you to go drink beer, but I think a multivitamin is a little healthier. But most multivitamins are fortified with that now.
Let's go to Cyrus Aga. What can natural bodybuilders do to protect and improve liver function?
Natural bodybuilders really theoretically shouldn't have anything wrong with their livers because they're not taking anything toxic. But I mean, if I always say it's good to take. I mean, I haven't taken drugs in years, and I still take something for my liver because it's always good to allow your liver to have the ability to detoxify itself at maximum, capacity. So I take a milk thistle product. I actually sell Bill Llewellyn's product, Liver Stable, on my DavePalumbo.com website. But I mean, any kind of high potency milk thistle supplement is really good because what it does is it opens up the bile ducts in the liver. Now, the liver produces bile. It drains through the bile ducts into the gallbladder, which then concentrates it. And when you eat a fatty meal, the gallbladder squeezes this bile into the intestinal tract, which helps break down the fat molecules. Doesn't digest them. It makes the fat molecules smaller so that the digestive enzymes that are released from the pancreas can go and digest the fat. What happens is that the liver uses those bile ducts to actually get rid of the junk that it detoxifies in your body. So all the blood supply goes to the liver pulls out all the toxins, breaks them down, and then releases the junk that it wants to eliminate from the body through the bile ducts into the gallbladder, into the intestinal tract, and then you kind of poop the stuff out. If your liver gets inflamed, and swells because it's being stressed out by too many toxic compounds in your body, those bile ducts can get pinched off. And when they get pinched off, the stuff can't go through it, and it backs up into the liver and makes the liver swell. And if that does it for a long period of time, you can cause, fibrotic tissue to be laid down, which is scar tissue in the liver. Once the liver scars over, it damages that part of the liver, and it's almost like dead. It doesn't do anything anymore. So the milk thistle, or the silymarin, which is the chemical in the milk thistle product, opens up, dilates these bile ducts, and allows the liver to continuously get rid of this junk and detoxify itself. So it's a good supplement to take on a daily basis.
Let's go to Hardcore Dan. Suggested grams of fat on a deficit per body weight.
Once again, it depends on your body weight. Depends on what kind of metabolizer you are in terms of fat and carbs. For most people, I like to give them about half their weight, in fat per day. So if you weigh 150 pounds, I like to give you 75 grams of fat per meal when I first start them out on a diet. So if I'm dieting, a woman who weighs 150 pounds, a lot of times I'll give her 15 grams of fat times 5 meals with her protein. And then, of course, if she's going to eat carbs or not, that I have to determine that. As far as off season goes, I might give them a little more. Usually for women, that's enough. For men, I'll usually go 3/4 of a gram per pound. So, to just boost up their ability. Because remember, fat is used as one of the essential, I guess you could say, macronutrients in building and repairing muscle. So, but for everyone, they're different. I know people that are better carbohydrate metabolizers than fat metabolizers, and sometimes you have to change those ratios around according to who the person is, because if you give them too much fat, it doesn't make them fat, they just don't lose weight because it's like they want to build muscle their body. A lot of these hyper, muscle builders, these guys are just like, they look at a weight and they gain muscle. You got to be careful. If you give them too many, certain macronutrients, too much protein and too much fat, it just sabotages their weight loss. So once again, everyone's a little different. You got to experiment, but I find that 1/2 gram to 3/4 of a gram of fat per pound is ideal for building and repairing muscle, and then of course for losing body fat.
Time for 2 to 3 more questions. This one's from Michael Morris. We often do get questions about your opinions on SARMs. We stopped taking a lot of those questions because, you pretty much said the same thing. You've been consistent about your stance on SARMs. But interesting question here. Do you have any protocols for any SARMs? Do you feel Clen and MK2866 have a combination effect with one another?
I don't think that Clenbuterol and SARMs have any kind of synergistic action in the sense of building and repairing muscle. Clenbuterol is a great fat burner. There is some sort of an anti-catabolic effect from it for people who, especially people who are natural, who take it. But I don't see that they don't work by similar mechanisms. There was a couple of those Olympic athletes that failed the drug test for SARMs recently, that one sprinter, especially in the UK there. And I truly believe that a lot of people don't even know what they're taking when they buy these SARMs, because you can't go to a pharmacy and buy SARMs, okay? It doesn't exist like that, Maybe in Europe somewhere they have a prescription version of it that you can pick up, but very few people are doing that. They're getting it from these peptide sites or these websites that are selling it, and I'm sure it's coming from China. and they're making their own pills or whatever they're receiving, and they're putting it in liquid forms or whatever. And a lot of people don't even know what's in there because you can't test the stuff. At least with steroids nowadays, there's testing kits out there. Those Roy test kits that I sell at DavePalumbo.com, there's other testing kits out there. You can actually test to see if the steroid is actually what it is. There's no SARMs testing kits, so you don't even know what you're taking. A lot of times people are just taking Nolvadex when they think they're taking a SARM. You might even be taking a steroid when you're taking a SARM and you wouldn't even know it. We don't even know what the dosing protocols really are for SARMs because there's not that much anecdotal evidence out there. A lot of it's just empirical evidence. People saying, "Oh, I take this much and it works." And so, I don't feel comfortable quantifying something when there's really no solid evidence out there of what the right way to take these things are. And like I said, some people think they're taking one SARM and they're actually taking another because there's no way to decipher between them. So I think it's still a kind of a dangerous type of product to take in the sense that you don't know what you're getting. And to be honest with you, if you're willing to go and take a drug that's not approved and that you don't even know what's in there, you might as well take steroids at that point because at least you know what the stuff does, you know what the long-term effects of it are, and you could actually test to verify it that what you're taking is really a steroid. So I don't know why people would pick a SARM over a weaker anabolic because even the weakest anabolic like Anavar is more powerful than every SARM out there. So that's the thing. I think SARMs have a lot of internet hype because they're readily available. If the government cut those things off like they did steroids, believe me, no one would even be talking about them.
One last one. It's from Dejwick. I guess conventional wisdom Akim Williams would be the answer to this question, but he wants to know, seeing Iain, James Hollingshead, Akim Williams, Hunter, and Nathan Biasha, in your opinion, who has the best chance at cracking the top 5 this year? Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 2.
Akim is the highest ranked guy out there. He's placed the best last year. You're conventional, if you're a betting man, the odds would be Akim Williams, I would say, would be the guy to break in there. But I think all those guys have I think we're going to see a lot of people pushed out of that top 6 this year. I could be wrong, but I really think Iain has come into his own. Akim is obviously there already. I think Hunter has really improved a lot from last year. I think Nathan Biasha looks amazing. And I think Hollingshead is like the Branch Warren of that group. No one's talking about him, but he could bring some freaky, crazy, grainy muscle to the stage, and some of these other guys might be a little off, and he might be right in there, So I think that we're going to see a lot of changes in this top 6 this year. That's my opinion, and that's my gut feeling. But you know what? It's a moronic prediction on my part because I don't know who's going to be in shape at the end of the day. But my gut says that I think we're going to start seeing changing of the placings rather than what we normally see, which is the same thing every year pretty much, just with a little reshuffling here and there.
Well, I know one guy who's already putting it out there is he's having a serious word to say about that. William Bonac. If you check our Instagram right now, we reposted something that he posted earlier in the morning.
Yeah.
William Bonac, what are we, 4 weeks out of the Arnold Classic? Yeah. That's a man that has won the Arnold Classic now 2 of the last 3 times, right. And I don't know if he's looking to relinquish that anytime soon.
I think Bonac could be the most dangerous guy out there. He's got a lot of bells and whistles on his physique, and he's got that hunger and that anger, and that's good because you know what? A lot of guys lose that. He still freaking wants to prove himself to everyone because people forget about him, but he is super dangerous.
I know we made this point at the beginning, or rather previewing last year's Olympia, and that exactly was about William Bonac, fresh off, winning a second Arnold Classic in 3 years. And yes, seemingly none of the conversation was about him. But yeah, you said it. I'm sure he's reading the headlines. I'm sure he's reading the banter. And I'm sure he is coming in absolutely hungry, looking to win his 3rd in the last 4 years. And then certainly he's going to be a major, major factor 2 weeks later on the Olympia stage. Lee Priest is coming up next, so that's going to do it for this show. Thanks to Tyler Shore and Dave Palumbo. We'll see you next time.